Okay, good morning, everyone. Good Erev Shabbos, Shabbos Shuva. Very exciting. Today we are starting the fourth Masechta in Shas. The Mishnah is Kilayim. Kilayim talks about the prohibition to putting different species together. The most familiar Kilayim that we know of is shatnez, where you're not allowed to mix wool and linen. That's a pasuk in the Varim Lo Silba Shatnez Semet Prishtim Yachtav. Perek based pasuk Yud Aleph the Varim. But it's not just that. It applies to vegetables and grains and trees, and animals, and it's a very cool masechta actually. Let's get a little technical at first, but you have a pasuk in Yikra Yitzie. Before we get to that, today's shir is Lila Nishmas Aaron Nachum and Simcha Kohen, Yeshua Mordechai ben Shepsel, Bracha Sarva Shmuel Leib, Moshe ben Yosef ben Yishonas having Aliyah, and before Shlema for Ada Sarva Bas Leib, so Shai Chali Yisrael. I got carried with the introduction, and I just forgot all the sponsors. Okay, so the pasuk in Kedoshim, I think it is, Perek Yutes, pasuk Yutes in Yikra says, that you should not, that your animals should not be mixed with Kilayim. Sadach says with Kilayim, you should not plant Kilayim. Uveg Kilayim shanes lo yale alecha, and you should not wear garments of shanes Kilayim. I'm going to talk about all that stuff. And then you have to talk about vineyards and about trees and animals. It's very cool. Okay, so the first three chapters talk about kilayim of plants, and you're not allowed to mix certain types of plants. Certain types are able to be mixed. And then you get into the Perek and Daled through Zion about the decline of a vineyard. We're also going to talk about a different spots over here about behema and garments. Very cool. So, and this is all chukim. Why we can't mix them? That's all chukim. We don't really fully understand. There are sfarim that say that when it comes to shot as well and linen, that Cain brought the linen and from the dreck of the earth, and Hevel brought from the best, from the sheep, and from the best he could offer as his carbon. Cain's carbon was rejected, and Hevel's was accepted, and ultimately Cain killed Hevel, and that all started over wool and linen. So that's just like a deeper sod. We don't really know the reasons for the chukim, because they're chukim for a reason. Anyways, let's jump into Perek Aleph. Perek Aleph, Mishnah Aleph. Achitim v'hazunin einan kilayim zeh b'zeh. So now we're going to talk about the very nuanced differences between variations of a plant species. So usually in these cases, the first one is going to be more common. The second one is going to be kind of like a variation which no one actually heard about. And the Mishnah is going to specify that these are not considered kilayim. So chitim v'zunin, wheat and darna, darna's type of grain, are not kilayim. Hasaor about barley and oats. Kusmin v'ashifon, spelt in rye. Apul v'asapir, the broad bean and the Nile cowpea, two beans that we're not really too familiar with nowadays. Pruktan v'atofach, the grass pea and the red grass pea, also variation of peas. Upul halavan v'hashauim she'auim, the white bean and the hyacinth bean, also different types of beans. And so none of these are considered kilayim. They're all within the same category, and they are fine to be planted next to each other. Mishnah Beis, Hakishus, Amalathon, and the regular cucumber and the Kirby cucumber, not kilayim. No issue here. Rabbi Yehuda Omer kilayim. He says they are kilayim. Chazeres v'chazeres galim, lettuce and mountain lettuce, ocean v'oshisa, the chicory and wild chicory, krishim, the krishe sada, leeks and wild leeks, kuspar and kuspar sada, coriander and wild coriander. You see that there's a main item and then there's a variation of it. Charda v'charda mitzvah, mustard and Egyptian mustard. With the last mitzvah, a mitzvah, arimutza, the Egyptian gourd and the ember gourd, two types of gourds. Upul mitzvah acharu, the Egyptian bean and the carrot bean. And the climbs they're not kilayim with one another because there's a variation within the same species. That's not kilayim. It's not an issue. Okay, Mishnah Gimel continues. With three more pairs of plants to which kilayim does not apply. We're getting out of the way all of things where kilayim does not apply, just to get past that quickly. Mishnah Gimel. Halefes v'hanafus, the turnip and the radish. You think that their leaves are very similar. Hakaril v'haturvutter, the cabbage and the wild cabbage. Hartartim v'halunim, spinach, beets, and sorrels. Sorrels is a leafy herb that is grown as a leafy vegetable. And the kilayim zevzeh, they're not kilayim. And Rabbi Akiva adds on shum shumanis, garlic and wild garlic, abatza v'habitzaltzul, the onion and the wild onion, v'hatormes v'hafalustus, and the Egyptian lupine and the wild lupine. I'm not sure what a lupine even is, but these any kilayim zevzeh, according to Rabbi Akiva, these are not kilayim at all. But the Tanna Kama argues with him and says that they are kilayim. Okay, moving right along. Mishnah Daled is going to talk about trees. We were talking about plants before the past 2 weeks. Now we're talking about trees. So there's no issue to plant seed the two fruit trees together, but the problem it comes up with grafting one species onto another. I mean, you're not allowed to graft two different species. So Mishnah Dal starts off with Elon regarding trees. Pears and mustamilin. Mustamilin is a small type of small pear, which resembles a gallnut, wherever a gallnut is. I don't know what these are. These did not make it onto my Shechianu list when we had the second Rosh Hashanah. Not most of these did not. And if it did, I didn't know what it was. Prisha uzradin, quinces and sorb apples, and kilayim zebazet. These are not kilayim. So now you have three more species. Hatapuach v'chazrad, apple and the chazrad. Chazrad is a type of apple that grows in the forest and is usually used to feed pigs. Parsak, parskin, shkedim, peaches and almonds. Shizifin, harimin, the jujubes and thorn jujubes. Even though they're similar to each other, they are kilayim. Even though they might be similar, but they can still consider to be kilayim. And Mishnah Hay continues, Hatsnun v'hanafutz, the radish and the nafutz. Nafutz are similar. It's similar to a radish, but they're kilayim because they're very different in taste. And chardal v'halafsan, mustard and charlock mustard. With the laws Yivanis im hamitzis v'haramutza, the Greek gourd with either the Egyptian gourd or the ember gourd. That Ava Pisha Dom and Zelazeh, even though they are similar to each other, Kilayim Zelazeh, they are Kilayim with each other. So the Rambam's going to lay a couple rules over here that like plants of the same species, they're never Kilayim with each other, even if they looked as though they belong to different species. You see, but plants of different species, they are Kilayim, even if they look similar, as we just learned in Mishnah Dalet. But if they look so similar that if they are so similar, they look completely to be free. I'm sorry. If they are so similar, they look completely to be free to be from the same species. They are considered one species and are not subject to Kilayim. That's according to the Rambam and Kilayim. Mishnah Hay, we just did Mishnah Hay. Mishnah Vav. Mishnah Vav continues with behemoths. We talked about plants, we talked about trees. Now we're talking about Kilayim when it comes to animals. Hazev v'hakelef. And this comes comes from the pasuk about not letting your ox and donkey plow together. That's the origin of this, and it offshoots into other animals as well. So Hazev v'hakelef, the wolf and the dog, Kelev hakurfri v'hashuel, the village dog and the fox, and Ha'izim v'hatzvaim, goats and gazelles, Ha'ya'elim v'harechelim, ibexes and female sheep, Hasus v'hapered, hapered v'hamor, the horse and the mule and the donkey, Hachamor v'ha'arud, the donkey and the wild donkey, Afal pisha dom and zelazeh, kilayim zevazeh. Even though they are similar to each other, they are kilayim, and it's us to put them together. Moving on to Mishnah Zion. Ein Mavian Elam be'Elam. May not graft one type of tree onto a different type of tree. That's assuming that one of them is a fruit-bearing tree. If neither one of them is a fruit-bearing tree, then you can graft it. Why are you grafting if it's not a fruit-bearing tree? That's a good question. Don't know. Yarak be yarak, nor a vegetable onto a different type of vegetable. And below elan be yarak, below yarak be elan, nor a tree onto a vegetable or a vegetable onto a tree. Rabbi Yehuda matir yarak be elan. Rabbi Yehuda permits grafting a vegetable onto a tree. So I just wanted to, I just remembered something from an earlier Mishnah. Sorry, I haven't been getting much sleep lately because of the season, and so it's hard to keep track of everything. Going back to Mishnah Aleph, we talked about Hachitim Zunin. The Bartanura explains that in the times of the Mabul by Noach, that people would plant one type and then something else would grow. And like we know that the world was so messed up with all of the issues that led to the Mabul, that even when it came to Kilayim, it was also messed up. So since the grains, when you're planting one grain, then another grain was growing, the world had to be destroyed. We know that the animals had problems, and people had problems. Obviously, this is not a shir right now, Parshat Noah, but um, but the Bartanura says that even the plants vegetation also had problems and added to the destruction of the world. Okay, Mishnah Ches and Tes coming right up. Mishnah Ches, Ein notin Irakos b'toch sadan shel shikma. We may not plant vegetables inside the stump of a sycamore tree. Can't plant it there. Why? Why can't we do that? Because the sycamore of the Mishnah is a member of the fig family. I'm not sure if that still applies nowadays, but by the time the Mishnah was, and it produces long, thick branches that are used as wooden beams. So at some point, you cut down the beam and you have a stump there, and then the stump, is fertile ground to grow more from it, and therefore that it's forbidden. Markivin fegam al gabe kida levana. Nor may we graft rue onto white cassia. Rue is a herb with a strong smell, and white cassia is a type of tree. Even though rue was not generally regarded as something worth keeping, it's and therefore it's not an issue in most cases. It is included in the prohibition of merk of graft. Okay, there's neish who yark Elon. These are considered grafting a vegetable onto a tree. And finishing up with Mishnah Ches, ein notin yicher shot ena betoch hachatzu. We cannot plant a branch of a fig tree inside a chatzuv. Shehev mikro, in order to cool off the chatzuv. You can't do that. Why not? It's interesting that the chatzuv is it's from the onion family, and it was used and its roots go straight down into the ground without branching off. It was used by Yeshua to mark the boundaries of each tribe's chalik in Eretz Yisrael. Fun fact. Where am I? Ein tochvin zemura shall get from the tocha v'tiach. Normally, we insert the branch of a grapevine into a watermelon plant. She's a rekes meha the socha, so that the melon should inject its water into it. But these are similar to grafting a tree onto a vegetable. And Enos in Zera Dalas, the Socha Chalamis, we may not put gourd seed into a mallow plant. Mishmarto, so that the mallow can protect it. There's Neshu Yakuyar, because that is the case of mixing, grafting a vegetable and onto a vegetable. And that's a problem. Every now and then you see like these wacky vegetables that come out of these are the broccoli flowers, the cross between broccoli and cauliflower. I mean, how they did that, seems like it's a violation of Kilayim. Plus, you have like what's it called, like a tangerine, like a nectarine. There's a cross between a plum and a peach. How is that not a problem? I don't know. Tell me and finally, Mishnah Tes. What about burying vegetables in a vineyard for the sake of storing them? you're not there to plant them. You're just burying them. We've had this and I think it was Peah, where you were planting and you were burying something and you weren't planting it. About the fields. Atomin levis is known as tachas gefen. If someone buries a plant, buries a bundle of turnips or a bundle of radishes under a grapevine in order to store them there. Even how you mix us a love magulin, some of the leaves of the turnips or radishes are exposed. You need not be concerned about violating Kilayim, even though he buries them next to a grapevine. And you need not be concerned about violating that dis or shmita, Maisros, and not regarding Maisros. These are no issues. When you tell them Shabbos, and they may be pulled out of the ground on Shabbos because since they're buried in bundles, there was no intention for them to take root. So all these things, not Kilayim, not Shvius, not Meiser, and Shabbos, they're not considered to be issues over here. So the Mishnah wraps up. Someone plants a grain of wheat and a grain of barley together. I raise a kilayim, that's kilayim. If Yehuda Omer, Yehuda says, Eino kilayim ad shihu shtei chitu v'sora. It is not kilayim unless there are at least two grains of wheat and a grain of barley, or chita ustei sorim, or a grain of wheat and two grains of barley, or chita usora nikosemes, or a grain of wheat, a grain of barley, and a grain of salt. So since over here when you're planting grains, you need three, not two. Why is it three? So the pasuk says, "Sadecha lo sizra kilayim." Right, in the field, you should not plant kilayim. So what's considered to be a sadeh? What differentiates sadeh, the field, from this land? So a sadeh is where something's actually growing, that was planted actually growing. In order for it to be a sadeh, you have to have at least one thing growing there. Otherwise, it's just empty land. So therefore, it'll be the thing that's currently growing plus two more that are planted, which will give you a total of three items. That would give you kilayim. Okay, that's all. That is the end of Perek Aleph, and we'll continue on Sunday morning with Perek Beis of Kilayim. Have a wonderful Shabbos.